You're listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business. I'm your host, Rachel, Author Engagement Manager at Kobo Writing Life, and my co-host today was Vanessa Salemi, the Author Engagement Specialist for Kobo Writing Life and former Content Coordinator for Kobo Originals.
In this week's episode, we spoke to author Ana Gomez. After experiencing a great loss in her life, Ana Gomez, who has also written as Christine Brae, decided that it was time to channel her feelings on paper and see where it would take her. She never imagined that her words would touch the hearts of many women with the same stories to tell. With an established fan base and a dedicated following, Ana has published several novels which have won literary awards.
We had such a wonderful conversation with Ana, and frankly, it was very inspirational. We talked to Ana about her publishing and writing career and how her writing process has evolved through writing under a pen name to writing under her own name and why she made that decision. We talked about how she balances the many hats that she wears as she's still a working CFO for a marketing firm. She's a multi-published author, an active mentor for young writers and the Girl Scouts of America. And she's also very focused on being present in the lives of her family. And she had some great advice for anybody who is also wearing many hats. Of course, we talked to her about her upcoming Kobo Original somewhere along the way and what it was like working with the Kobo Originals team. And we chatted a bit about how Ana puts a little bit of herself into all of her novels. And like I said, this conversation was just so much fun, and Ana was so lovely, and I really hope you enjoy. Hello, we are joined today by author Ana Gomez. Ana, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you both.
Nice to see you as well. Just to kind of kick things off, can you introduce yourselves to our listeners who may not be familiar with your work and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Ana Gomez. I also write under the pen name Christine Brae. I am a women's fiction, women's lit/romance author. I always lose count, but I think I have 8 books now. And I am a wife, a mom. I have a full-time career, and I am your new Kobo Originals author.
Amazing. Speaking of a career, you are a very successful career as a CFO of a marketing and advertising company. So how did you make the transition? You're still currently at that job, but how do you make the transition from a job like that to a job as a writer?
I guess writing has always been like sort of a stress relief for me. I started writing about 10 to 12 years ago when an event in my life happened. I lost my mom, and I just wanted to write about it. So I actually started in self-publishing. So a lot of experience with Kobo because I was posting my own book. I found that it was very therapeutic for me to write that first book, and, unexpectedly got a following and thought, I could do this. I could do both sides. I could keep my full-time job and write on the side, and be the two people that normally result from two very different, avenues of life. And so that's how I got started. I just started writing on the side and publishing on my own. I didn't really know what it would be like 10 years later, like that I would be coming out as an author and / CFO, someone in the finance world. But yeah, it's really been a great experience because as you can imagine, I deal with 2 very separate types of people and aspects of life.
That's actually the perfect segue into my next question, which is when you hear CFO and you hear author, you envision 2 very different parts of your brain. And I'm curious how you manage your time and creativity when working in 2 such different fields.
I would say that when I started my career, my career took off in the last few years, which has made it more difficult for me to kind of separate the 2 or focus on one versus the other. But, when I was starting out my career, my actual job career a few years ago, it wasn't as hectic. And I had time because part of being, a controller, a CFO, whatever I was at that time, entailed a lot of travel. I was traveling a lot, meeting people. We had international locations. And it was really a good time for me during the plane ride, in a hotel, in the lobby, anywhere I can get a chance to just put my thoughts down on paper and start writing stories. It's never really a transition. I don't really call it a transition because it's been part of my life for so long. But I think, you know, I kept it a secret for a long time. I really did. Like, I didn't tell anyone at work, only a few close friends, that I wrote books, even that I published books. And then, our CEO outed me one day when I came out in USA Today, for one of the books that I had written came out in an article. And he basically sent this blast email to the entire agency that, hey, do you know that she's also a writer? And, and that was the start of, everything else that's been happening. So I also work for an advertising agency. I've been in advertising for 18 years, which celebrates creativity and just really supports, the creative in every single person, which has been a very good journey for me because they're very proud that their CFO, somebody that does policies and procedures and rules and compliance and all that, also has a creative side. And so they've been very supportive.
I think that's amazing that it was an article of, you said New York Times bestseller?
USA Today.
Or
yeah.
USA Today. That's amazing, first of all. And I kind of am curious if, because it's marketing and advertising, and you did say that you started indie publishing, did the marketing and advertising come into play at all when you were pushing your books out as an indie author? Like, did you have any kind of like I want to say contamination, that's not the word, but cross like with the two jobs?
No, not at all. Because first of all, I was trying to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we had a PR department that I was just dying to like set up a meeting and go, hey, what should I do to, hawk my books? But I always tried to keep it separate. So I never did bring that up with anybody in that field. And the second thing is that it's so different when you're marketing for like a company or you're using influencers for a product than when you're doing it for yourself. There's really a huge difference. And it's something that a lot of us struggle with. And I particularly struggle with, because you also have to remember, because I was trying to separate these two aspects of my life, I was very careful, even with my social media presence. Like, I used to envy authors that would just full-time promote themselves and be on Instagram all day long with bathing suits and everything they used to wear. Like, they don't care. And here I am, like, never posting a bathing suit picture, never, because I had that corporate persona that I was very protective of. I mean, it's my full-time job.
I'm kind of curious if that mentality has changed at all for you now that you've been, for lack of a better word, outed as an author. Or do you still do your best to keep those two lives and those two parts of your life separate?
I do keep it separate. Still, I try to. I mean, I think it's changed in the fact that I'm very open now. Yeah, hey, I write books. I'm in a meeting and they're like, hey, we saw your book. Oh, thanks. Like, I'm open in that sense. But when you're putting your persona out there where you're negotiating things, you're negotiating contracts, you're meeting with clients, you're basically asking people to comply with, regulatory things. It's very hard to put yourself out there as you really are. Meaning, I'm not saying that I'm a fake person outside of that, but I think there's a happy medium with keeping it, as professional as possible. I do believe it hurts me in the sense that, I have a full-time job. I can only do it at night. And then I get very self-conscious if I post something. Like, I'm like, oh gosh, like my CEO might think I'm not working. There's all these things that you have to balance, right? And I think that's why I've been successful in my career, is because I have been balancing it. And I don't want to lose that aspect of it. But you will never find me anywhere on work email on the weekends, because weekends I stay in my pajamas. I don't leave the room, and I just like put myself in this heavenly situation where I'm just writing.
Well, that's a perfect segue again into like your actual writing process. So weekends, pajamas, but what is your process like when you start a new book?
I think it's just free thought. I think I have a notebook with me everywhere I go, and I know people put them on their phones these days, but I'm still very, kind of old fashioned in that way. I have a notebook, and anytime a thought comes to mind, I just write it down, and then I revisit it at night. So I make sure I spend in this career, it's also very demanding, as you can imagine. And so there are times when I can't do anything about my thoughts because I need to finish my work. But when I do get the chance, I just write and then read what I write and then like put it together and like put an idea together. So let me give you an example like this one. When you, Vanessa, and the Kobo team contacted me, like I wrote that 7 book, like you said, like, what do you want to write about? I wrote that in like 10 minutes because I already had these thoughts in my head. And I know you guys picked one of them, but like, I was like, I can't believe I just wrote this in 10 minutes. Like, it was like it was like an idea vomit. Like I just vomited out everything in my head that I thought I could write about.
And it was amazing. It was a great first read.
You guys chose one of them, and I'm like, okay, I have 6 more. But it's really interesting because like those things never stop. So like I'm not transitioning or I'm not stopping myself. It just flows. And I think I'm very lucky because people ask me, what do you do about writer's block? And I don't have time for writer's block because my days are so full that, there's no such thing as just sitting there trying to conceptualize something. I don't have that time.
I don't have time for writer's block is such a great, like, motivational mug to have on a desk.
Because it's true, because you just go and do something else and you come back and like, it's back.
Well, that's amazing. But I'm so curious though, because like, I feel like there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I have so many ideas. I could write a book. But going from that idea to a completed novel is such a different journey. And I'm curious what that looks like for you from going from like that, like you said, word vomit idea into a completed novel.
It's a lot. Specifically, again, these times in my life where I'm just everything is happening. Do you ladies know I have a son who's getting married too? So we're doing wedding preparations and like, so there's everything, like everything around you is just happening and you're just kind of trying to manage through everything. So this book, for example, the reason I love it so much, and I hope you ladies get to read it, is because I really had an idea that I didn't know how to project. I wanted to write about my mom and dad. And I didn't know how to project that, except through my idea that they would write each other letters. So that was an idea that I had. Okay, they're going to write each other letters. But then as you get into the detail and the technicalities of it, it's like, okay, what do they write each other about? And how does the story move forward? So it starts with an idea and everyone says I can write a book because I have the idea. But the hardest part is putting the chapters together. The hardest part is thinking in your head, like how the story moves forward, because you can have books that like talk about the same thing for 10 chapters, which obviously, as you know, is like a no-no, which I learned the hard way. But it's first how to move the story forward. And then the second thing is, what the heck is your message? Like, you gotta have a message. And so you put those two things together and they're very difficult. This book in particular was very difficult because, again, it was personal to me. And the second thing is I had no time. So when I talked to Vanessa and Jessica and they gave me a year, did I start a year ago? No, I started in January. And it was due to my personal editor for like structural edits, like May 1st. So I'm so proud that I pulled it off. But it's a long process. And I think all writers, I think the worst part of every single book that you're trying to publish is not it's not the story. It's not the words that you put on paper. It's the after. It's the technical stuff that comes through and comes in and all the other steps that you have to accomplish.
I am so excited to read the final copy. I cannot wait. But while we're talking about it, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, so the book is about a girl named Charlie, or maybe a woman named Charlie, who just lost her dad. So the story starts out that way. And then there's a lot of spiritual stuff in the sense that she has a dream about her dad, and her dad says, hey, your mom wrote me these letters. And she's like, well, I don't have a mom. I never really had a mom. He's like, well, everyone has a mom. So you did have a mom, and she did write me these letters, and go to your auntie because she's got all those. I saved all those letters for you. And so she goes from not ever having a mom to knowing she had a mom who's alive, and a mom who's actually written her life story in these 15 letters. So she says, where's my mom? And well, she's somewhere in California. She's like, okay, well, I'm going to take a road trip to find my mom and read the letters along the way. And so she reads the letters along the way, and the letters just change her. Like there's a take on the Charlotte's Web story about the spider weaving words for Wilbur, who was, a pig's life is eventually to get slaughtered and eaten by people. And so Charlotte saved him by writing these words, weaving these words that people can see how wonderful he was. I don't know if you know that story, but we all know Charlotte's Web. So first of all, her mom named her Charlotte because she would to her mom, like she saved her. And the second thing is like how important words are. And so the story is really about reading her mom's words and actually transforming herself and changing herself because of these words that her mother wrote. And obviously there's romance because she meets this guy named Graham who's super hot and, all of a sudden just wants to go on a road trip with her. And she's really dumb because like, why would you go on a road trip with a stranger? And, all that. And so she fingerprints her car with all her fingerprints and puts a lock of hair so that like, if anyone looks for her, people can trace where she was because she's in this car with a stranger. And then things happen. So yeah, so I said too much, but I just think it's such a funny way to start. So
very quickly could be a murder mystery, I think.
I was going to say, we love a girl who's watched enough like Criminal Minds and CSI to know to leave fingerprints and hair behind.
Yeah, because that's what the reader's going to say. Why are you going to go with a stranger? I'm like, well, first of all, suspend your belief because it's a fiction book. And second, it's like things happen.
Now, we definitely want to delve more into like the detail of the book, but kind of taking a step back, how did you get involved with Kobo Originals? And how did your publishing journey go from indie publishing to kind of working with Kobo right now?
Sure. So indie publishing started when I, again, went through the loss of my mom. And that was like 12 years ago. And I just wanted to write a story about a mother and a daughter and their kind of complicated relationship. And that was at the same time that 50 Shades of Grey came out, and I was actually publishing with Colleen Hoover, and like we were all writing these romance things. And so I figured, I'm going to put romance in this story. So that's kind of what I did. I self-published that first book. And then this woman got a hold of me on Facebook and said, God, your book just resonated so much with me. I want to set up a fan page for you. So she did. And at that time, nobody knew I was writing. I self-published the book. I really thought I could just walk away from it. And then that fan page grew to 30,000 followers who wanted a second book and then a third book. And so by the time I self-published the second book, a couple agents had already contacted me. And so I signed up with an agent and a publisher. And so the next few books were published. And then, so I was writing. It's a good stress relief for me. I write about stages in my life and the travels that I go through, and also the cultures that I meet. So I write multicultural stories because I'm from a different culture. I like talking about my culture, and I also meet people from all walks of life. And so I published books under a publisher, Vesuvian Media, and then an imprint that they had called Rosewind Books, which is all romance. And then it'll be weird to talk about my writing journey if I didn't talk about then co-writing with Kristoffer Poloha. So that one was I was at the point where I was ready to like start thinking about like, hey, I've got these really good books about like transformation women and everything they go through. And my book In This Life was actually optioned for film by an actor and his girlfriend. And so at that point, I'm like, hey, maybe the other books could be made into movies. And so I was looking for somebody to help get me a hold of some producers. And I had a friend named Javier, a very close friend of mine who knew Chris Poloha. They were neighbors in California. And so he introduced us. And the first time we met, we were wearing the same shirt. And so we knew it's like, it's fate. We need to write a book together. So we just got along so well that 2 days later, we had a contract to write a series of books based in Hawaii. Chris had filmed North Shore there, which is a series that he had filmed, and he had lived there. So he did have like very specific nuances about life in Hawaii and the things that he saw there. And so it was a really good thing for us to write together. So we wrote the first book and did really well. And so the first 2 books are now in production. So I've left that to him. I basically have stepped away, done my normal job, and be like, here, like, I don't know anything about that. So you go ahead and take care of it. But then I was taking a break. So I think after that, I was like, okay, I've accomplished what I wanted to do. Then I got this another CFO position. I'm like, I have a new job. I really need to kind of like, I don't know, recoup maybe, or like just kind of recalibrate like what I wanted to do. Because when 2 parts of your life are on equal footing, that's good. But then when one surpasses it and then the other one's just trying to catch up with it, it's like now you have these 2 huge parts of your life that are now actually competing for time, which they didn't before because I had always prioritized one over the other. And then I don't know what happened. There was an email from Vanessa and Jessica to Italia, my manager, that said, hey, we saw this. What did you say? We found Anna somewhere.
Yeah, we were looking at Kobo and your book popped up and I was like, ooh, she seems really interesting. And I went on your website and I was just like, we have to reach out to her. We have to. I was just obsessed with everything about you.
So they did. And the rest is history. I mean, I have to tell you, ladies, this has been like one of the best experiences of my life, just working with Kobo. It's been an amazing journey, and I've learned so much. So I've never done this before, where I've signed away my rights to an ebook separate from a paperback. So I was like, what does that mean even, and I've learned so much. And so here we are as Kobo Originals. I'm trying to get you to ask me to write one more book, but we'll talk about that later. So
I'll put a pin in it.
Yeah.
Well, you kind
I
of
hope
already
I answered your question.
You did, and you almost answered the next one, which I'm going to steal from Vanessa because I'm not on the originals team. So I feel like there's less pressure if I ask you, what has the experience of working with Kobo Originals been like? Again, no pressure.
No, it's no. I mean, I'm very candid about everything. It's been great. So they reached out to me and, basically they said, like, we know you have a full-time job. We know you've got other projects in the pipeline. So I was about to release another book. And so they said, we'll give you a year. If a year's okay, it works out. And I said, yeah, a year's fine. No pressure. That'll give me time to finish up what I'm doing. And then, everything has just been so, on schedule. Like, this is when you will do this. This is when we do this. And it's just been amazingly on schedule, which has never really happened. Like, when you work with, a publisher, things can happen that kind of like delays something, or the edits take longer than normal. And they found me an amazing editor, Libby Taylor. And she just basically like took my words, made them better, suggested other things, and it's been great. So we had like a timeline that we've met. We're actually early, so we're done with the final edits. They were supposed to be done August 26th. We're done tomorrow. So like, everyone's been so kind and professional. And have you seen the book cover? Like, have you worked with that editor before? I mean, that book cover artist?
No, we found her. We just loved her stuff. So we found her for your book specifically because her stuff is
amazing.
Amazing.
Yes. So I fell in love with the book cover as soon as I saw it. And it just like inspired me to even like make the story better. So everything's just been great. Like, the book cover is beautiful. I'm so proud of this book. I'm so proud to be partnering with Kobo Originals. And then your interview with me, and then I think I'm coming over to actually talk to your CEO in October. I have an interview live with him, so I have to fly to Toronto. Like, just the entire, the way that they make you feel and the importance they put on the fact that you've written this book. It's just been great.
You've been great. It's been a pleasure to work with you, honestly. We're so happy about
I want to be the best author that you've worked with. I'm just competitive that way.
We love it. We love it. Fight for us. Fight for us. So I wanted to switch just a little bit back to the book for a second, because you were talking about like you've obviously traveled a lot, very well traveled. I'm curious about this specific book because it is a road trip book.
Yeah.
So is this a route that you've taken yourself, or did you do any specific research about the places that they go?
I did a lot of research. We start out in Brooklyn, and our office is in Brooklyn. So every time I would go to the office in New York, in Brooklyn, I would look around. I love those like 2 flats they have, and the stone houses and all the scenery and the bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge and the Dumbo. And so I basically wanted to start the story from there, but everything else was research. So it's very interesting. AI is really your friend. I know a lot of people are threatened by it, but if you ask AI, like, what if I had an electric vehicle and I wanted to drive from Brooklyn to California, how many miles do I need to go to charge up again? Because it's an electric vehicle, and it would tell you. And then it's not like like it helps you instead of having to research on Google. It just tells you like you have to stop every 230 miles. Okay, so then you research on where would you be 230 miles later, and where would you be, and where would you be? And a lot of these places I've been to, but I've never driven. We've never driven all the way to California, but there are a lot of these places I've been to, so I know like what to see. But I didn't want it to be, I wanted to get away from making it like a tour guide book. Like, because we write about Hawaii yearbooks, and a lot of it, we went to different places in Hawaii. I wrote about 8 Goodbyes. I wrote a lot about Paris. I didn't want it to be like that. So I really didn't touch so much on the location. I touched more on the relationship between Charlie and Graham, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't really talk about scenery or anything like that. I talked more about like the evolution of the relationship.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I like swear you're a little bit psychic because you keep giving us the best segues into our next question, which has to do with balancing the romantic elements of the book with the more emotional beats. Because like you mentioned, it's about Charlie trying to find her mom and like grieving the loss of her father, but it's also a romance. And I'm curious how you balance the emotional arc with the evolution of the romance.
Yeah, and I think I tried to do that by having her have her moments where she's by herself reading the letters, and you can read her thoughts and her feelings, and then she narrates some of it to Graham. Some of it she's too embarrassed to talk to Graham about. Some of them she's openly, and as the story progresses, she's more open with him, obviously, as the days go by. But I think it was important for me to separate the two. It was more important for me to have him just in the background as somebody who supported her, which he said in the very beginning, like he just wanted to get to where he was going. He wanted to go home and he was just hitching a ride. So he wanted to leave her to her own thoughts, to her own feelings, and at the same time just be there. And then she traveling as a woman by herself on the road really counted on him for more safety protection and as a friend to listen to what she had to say about her mom, right? So those were the two things. And in fact, this is funny, but I kept texting Libby. I kept emailing the editor going, do I need to put more heat in this? Do I need to put more heat in this? Because I'm like, I don't know what people want to read. She asked me a very good question, which I want to convey to you, lady. She said, think about it. Will the heat add to the relationship that they have? And I'm like, no. So, it was the transformative effect of the letters and more like the heat that I kept saying, do I need to add it? Because I know a lot of readers like that. But yeah. So that's how I kind of found the happy medium. And then, I struggled a lot because it's like, what do people want? Do people want to have to cry? Do people want to have to throw their Kindles but I think after like 8 or 9 books, I already know that you will have readers that want you to write something to make them throw their Kindles, but you also have other readers that don't need you to do that. So I tried to find the happy medium.
No, I love that. And I'm curious kind of what drew you to the genre of women's fiction slash romantic women's fiction, let's say, to begin with.
I think it's just life experience. I think I have so many friends. We're four sisters, so we all went through like times in our life where like matters of the heart were very important. I'm also I cry at every Hallmark commercial. I'm just that type of person, and I think I've just watched so many relationships. I haven't been in so many relationships, but I've watched so many relationships. I've had the relationship between my parents, that I just know that there's a transformative benefit of love, of self-love, of, a woman's growth. There's all these things that I always like writing about. So yeah, no, I can't write a thriller. I tried. I can't. First of all, I'm afraid of everything. Like I sleep with the lights on when I travel by myself. So I can't.
So that might answer the question. Would you take this road trip that you've written? Would you ever do it?
I would take it with, yeah, I would. I mean, I ask that question a lot. Like, I think these days we're a little bolder. We're a little more independent. I think we're a little less scared, to do things by ourselves on our own. And we watch a lot of crime movies, so we kind of know what to do to protect ourselves. But yeah, I think I really would. And I have a daughter who's probably your age or like older, maybe, I don't know. But like I have a daughter, like I always say, like these are the times to be bold and brave. Things that like in my generation probably were not safe, or we didn't see them as being safe. But gosh, like there's so much life to live. There's so much life to live, and there's so many roads to travel,
I love
before you
that.
get married.
Yeah, I was gonna. I'm nodding, knowing I'm afraid of most things, so I probably wouldn't. But I want to kind of touch back on the difference in writing under your own name. You got your pen names, and then you co-wrote with Kristoffer, who I absolutely loved him in Life Unexpected. I just had to say that because I loved him enough. But yeah, so what's the difference between writing through all three of those things?
I think it's the voice. I think I wrote under a pen name when I wrote when I wrote a little bit spicier books, or more daring books, I would say, and books that were fictionalized. I mean, completely fictionalized. And then when I started succeeding in my career and I had a platform and a voice, for diversity or for women's issues, I felt like I now had a platform to use my name, and that I would be able to help more women. Or when I was invited to do keynote speeches, I had more of an identity that I could share with the world. So I started using my real name. So, and the pen name was really when I told no one that I was writing, like nobody knew. So
I was wondering about that, if that was your undercover identity.
It was my undercover. It was my undercover, yes.
I love that. And I'm kind of curious, you again, literally just touched on this, but you were born in the Philippines and you were educated abroad before moving to the States. And I'm curious how you bring that experience into your work as an author.
I think that I moved, I grew up in the Philippines and I moved to the US. So I was educated in Vancouver. My family moved to Vancouver for a while. So, but I think what that does for my writing is basically the experience. When I first started writing and I started writing about traveling and different cultures, I was amazed at how many women had never left their house. How things we take for granted, like we all go on vacation and whatnot. Like there are a lot of women who have never been on an airplane, or, who just have different priorities. They have not been able to, travel the world and see more of the world. And I think that's what I bring. I bring kind of a world where they can get lost in for a few hours, different cultures, different nuances. And at the end of the day, the message is that love is love no matter where you're from. And that I always say at the end of my books, like, you're never alone, because whatever you're feeling, like right this minute, someone else is going through it as well. And those stories and the ability, my ability to write those stories, because I've been to so many parts of the world and I've seen, um, I worked a lot in France, so I've been in Paris so many times, and just the similarities in culture between the French and the Canadians and the Filipinos and the Americans, like it's all like we all talk the same language. We might not understand each other, but like we talk about commercials and pop culture and all that, and it just ties us together. And so that I think that's what I bring to my stories, no matter what the setting is.
Yeah, I read it in another interview of you actually that you said you like to create characters that mirror yourself. And I'm curious, especially because this book is so close to you, with your parents being involved. I wonder if you could expand maybe a little more on why that's so important to you.
It's so important to me because my books are always emotional. And to be able to bring that emotion into the book through words, you have to have experienced it yourself or been close to it. You've had to have lost your mom. You have to have lost a friend. You've had to have heartbreak, which we all do. It's easier to translate that into words when it's a true emotion. So the books that I wrote under my pen name were basically stages in my life. So, In This Life is about impossible love. Like you just can't imagine that it would happen, and it happened because I was going through that time in my life where like, hey, I'm 40. What do I do? What am I doing? Insipid is about midlife crisis. Eight Goodbyes is about what happened in France, the terrorist attack, like what happened to people and how it affected people. So there's always some realism in that. And what I write about myself, which I have to tell you, Vanessa, a lot of the reviews say the main characters are annoying. And I tell my husband, like, but that means I'm annoying because a lot of that is taken from me, like indecision, career mind, strong, stupid, all those things. Like they're all in all of us.
People are very harsh when it comes to women characters, though. That's in
And they're like, it's
every.
impossible. She can't do
Yeah,
that. I'm like,
yeah,
well, I kind of did. So, like,
exactly.
and you want to write back, but you don't, obviously. You're just like saying it to yourself, like, okay, you know. But yeah, I mean, the thing is to be true to yourself and true to what you write, so that no matter what reviews you get, you know that you wrote from your heart and you know that you wrote it for the right reasons, which is not to hit a list or sell a million books. It's really because you had something to say.
I love that so much. And just like speaking of women who have so many things going on and accomplish so much, when you're not being a CFO or writing novels, you were also involved with the Girl Scouts of America and you're a mentor with the Girls Right Now organization. So like, first of all, how do you balance all of your commitments while still making time for your creative outlets? And why are these two organizations so important to you?
Because they're girls. So Girls Right Now is an organization based in New York, and they actually help unrepresented voices. So all these girls, young girls that are underrepresented in their communities, they get together and they write. And they are so phenomenally artistic. They have so many things to say. They write beautifully. And Girls Right Now supports that. So it helps you become an author or scriptwriter, anything you want to do about writing in a community that can afford to support, what you want to do. And then Girl Scouts has been near and dear to my heart forever. I mean, you should see these young girls that are in grade school. They plan what they want to do for college. They have a direction. They like have such big dreams. And they're all so amazing just as girls. And again, we support them. These are the girls that have nowhere to go after school, that need a place to be after school, that need an activity. We have, camps that help them to grow. And then we also have mentors just like me that sit there and go, hey, you know what? You feel different now, but you can be whoever you want to be. You can do whatever you want. You can have kids. You can write a book. You can be a CFO. You can, you can take a break. You can not take a break. You can talk to Kobo. You can be interviewed. Like, it's like all these things happening, you know, to just normal girls that have such big dreams. And so those are important to me. And it's really, I thought, before when I was younger, like, yeah, what impact can I have? And now it's just so you can see the impact that you have when you sit with these girls. We have a thing at Girl Scouts called Camp CEO, which CEOs and C-suite women from different companies spend a weekend camping with these young girls. And you have two girls under you that you spend the weekend together, and just hearing what they want to be or what they want to do and how they want to change the world. It's just like so inspiring.
I love this so much. I'm like getting choked up. But like I don't know if like on a realist perspective or whatever, like you are doing a lot.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of people who want to be doing a lot. And I'm curious if you have any tips for avoiding taking on too much or avoiding what some people might say inevitable burnout.
Yeah. You can't do everything. You have to prioritize, and you have to accept the fact that there are things that you're going to do half-assed. You can't be perfect in everything. Nobody can be. There's only 24 hours in a day. So what you have to do is just focus on what you want to do on certain days and remove your focus from other things. What I mean by that is, like, if you're going to watch your child in a football game or a soccer game or a cheerleading practice, be there and be present. Because that means a lot to them. And if you're going to have to sit, which I have to do now, my husband's retired. So if you're going to have to sit and watch Netflix with your husband from 8 to 10, be there and be present so he doesn't complain that you're never there. And then forget about all the other things you have to do and plan them for the next day. You can't do everything. So I don't think I answered your first question, which was like, how do I do it all? I don't. Like, I have to plan very carefully what I need to do during the day. But as long as it's something that's fulfilling and something that you've made an impact with, move on to the next day and try another thing. You can't do everything.
I love the two things, be mindful and be present, which is something I know I struggle with and a lot of people struggle with, but it's very true, because that's what you get done is when you're mindful and you're present in the activity that you're doing. So I feel very inspired by this conversation right now.
Yeah, you know what? I've learned as I gotten older, you also have to invest in people that invest in you. So, like, don't waste time investing on friends that are not your friends. But if you have a true friend, one or two, like, invest in them, like text them, like 2 months after you've seen them. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, text them to make sure they're okay, because those are so important as you get older, because your world gets smaller, but the quality of people get better. So that's my tip to the two of you too, is like, invest.
I feel like this is more helpful for us, I think, than anything today.
Oh.
So I just wanted to talk about what you are doing next besides the original. So let us know what you have going on, because I'm sure you got a lot going on.
In terms of writing, really not much. I think Chris and I are going to get together again and start conceptualizing the third book, which, working with him is a pleasure because there's no pressure. Like, we're like, okay, how long would it take us to get here? And the work is actually better when two people are doing it. He does half, I do half. Like, I don't have to worry about the other half. And so I think we're doing that. And I also have been working on something that that's near and dear to me. It's called Match Made in Pairs, which is just a cute little romance thing that I've been trying to finish. So aside from that, no, I'm planning to kind of slow down a little. I say that all the time, I know, so don't hold me to it. But I am planning to slow down again. I have a wedding coming up in less than a year. My son's moved to Denver. I want to go visit him. So one day at a time. But in terms of projects, just those two.
Just two. That's only two. And for listeners who want to find you online, where can they do that?
Yeah, everything is in my website, annagomezbooks.com. Everything you want to know about me is there. And then, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook with the same Ana Gomez Books. So yeah, anybody wants to reach out, I'm there. I don't post that much, but yes, I'm there.
Well, we'll include links to all of them in our show notes and so folks can find you. And Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. This has been so fun and also, like Vanessa said, deeply inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here, and it's nice to see both of you.
Thank you for listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast. If you're interested in picking up Anna's books, we will include links in our show notes. If you're enjoying this podcast, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you're looking for more tips on growing your self-publishing business, you can find us at kobowritinglife.com. Be sure to follow us on social media. We are at Kobo Writing Life on Facebook and Twitter, and at kobo.writing.life on Instagram.
This episode was hosted by Vanessa Salemi and Rachel Wharton, with production by Terrence Abrahams. Editing is provided by Kelly Robotham. Our theme music is composed by Tearjerker, and a huge thanks to Anna Gomez for being our guest today. If you're ready to start your publishing journey, sign up today at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing.